Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. The camera's a little skew right now. I will fix that afterwards. Join alongside Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. And if you're wondering why we're wearing headphones, it's because we're taking live calls again today. I'm excited. This is the inaugural first calls for Shotgun Spratling. Last time we had live calls, we had Gerard Martinez on. So this will be a new experience for you, Shotgun, which is exciting. Today we're going to talk about the opening LA Regional. Shotgun and I were there on Sunday. It was a cold and rainy day, but we saw a lot of talent, a lot of prospects that USC is looking at. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the spring camp storylines. We're just 3 weeks away from spring camp, if you can believe it or not. So football will be returning soon, which is fun. Then we're taking your live phone calls. Our number is 424-254-9141. If you didn't get that, it's scrolling on the ticker below. You can call. As a reminder, it's a one-line phone line. So if you don't get in, it's because someone's already called ahead. It's just look at the draw. That's what happens. But guys, how's it going? Another show, another day. How's it going?
Good, doing good. We got a little bit different setup. Again, we got the live calls we did a couple weeks ago. If you get a call, and you don't have to leave a voicemail. That's fine. But you can just call back when you hear us. Like hang up on the caller for the next show, for the next whatever call. You can call back and then you'll be able to get in. Chris Trevino's in the other room taking our calls, so that'll be fun. This is Shotgun's first time with that, like Keely said. We have a new camera, so there should be a better looking camera that Keely just adjusted for us. Better, you don't want to see us better, I guess, but you will. And we also have an overview if you want to see like what the whole setup is like. A lot of people think that Keely is in another room. She is not. So we're all here in the same place. You can see that. So you can
see my whole setup.
You can switch to that, and then we're not showing you Chris in the other room yet, but he's the one.
We can have a Chris cam at some point.
Yeah, he's taking the call, so it should be fun. This is sort of we got to turn the page on 2018. There was a little bit of bad news for USC football in 2018, and to all the stuff surrounding 2018. We're going to try to turn the page on that, Shotgun, and look ahead to maybe some positive things in 2019.
Yeah, 2018 happened. That was
it was real.
Yeah, so that was the negative, that the entire season happened. So we'll see going forward. USC has spring football coming up in about 3 weeks. You'll see the Family Feud podcast. We've changed it a little bit. You'll see that coming out tomorrow probably. We're doing a spring preview as well. We're taking your guys' calls today. We're taking your guys' chats as well. So anybody that wants to join us, we're here to answer your questions.
Yeah.
As far as the Peanut Gallery, the YouTube people that are our friends, the chat is disabled right now, and I'm working on it. I don't know how it got disabled, so I'm trying to let you guys be free, be able to speak on our chat.
I think Keely just didn't want the YouTubers to be able
to
chat.
That is false. Not true.
You can tweet her at Keely is my name.
No, it's Ryan. Yeah, okay, but the opening LA was on Sunday. It was actually the first spot on the opening's multi-city track. Shotgun, what did you see from Bryce Young was there? A lot of USC guys and targets were there. What did you see? What were your overall impressions?
My overall thoughts are that there's a lot of talent in Southern California this year. You got 18 of the top 200 guys right now in our 24/7 Sports national rankings are from Southern California, but not a lot of them are looking at USC as much as they probably normally would be. You got guys like number 3 overall, Justin Flo. You got guys like Elias Ricks, number 9. Elias Ricks committed to LSU. Justin Flo, USC, that's a guy that you can't really miss out on. He's such a dynamic player. Yeah. He was a beast all day on Saturday on Sunday at the opening. But USC might be on the outside looking in, at least right now. He's considering all schools still. His little brother was out there. He's playing really well. He's got a ton of offers. So there's a lot of talent in the Southern California area. But if USC could lock it all up, you're like, wow, this is going to be a great recruiting class. The question is, are they going to start playing better so that the teams are, so that players are considering them more as this season progresses? Or is it going to be like this past year where they went 5-7 and a lot of the guys that, you expected USC to be in the mix for, they weren't in the mix for late. And I think Ryan, you looked back and looked at one of Gerard Martinez's, 10 of Troy, one of the first, first list of, hey, these are the 10 guys USC is looking at, the biggest names that everybody's talking about going into the season. I think it was last spring, and USC ended up with one
of the 10. Yeah. So I got the idea. Our friends over at Rain of Troy, they do like after signing day, they do, here's 10 guys to watch for next year. for their list, USC got none of them. And so Gerard, I mean, Gerard usually, this is a premium feature. He'll put his Tenor Troy thing up. I'm going to write a little story up on it later. But yeah, like there's guys, and he had different guys than what the Rot people did. But yeah, one of the 10, Drake Jackson was the only one on his 10. It's great that he had Drake Jackson on that list early on, last spring. But to have like, these are guys that are like, okay, they're it would have been the Brew McCoy. I mean, like not Brew McCoy, but it would have been like the Amon-Ra St. Browns, the JT Daniels, those kind of guys. Those are the kind of guys that are on the list. USC only got one of the 10. So yeah, that's not. They need to do better. And a guy like Justin Flo, who we saw a lot in these different camps as a 2020 kid competing against 2019 guys, looking great. Now we're only going to see him compete against the kids his age, and it's going to be sick,
He was incredible. He was my best player of the day. Now, he did need to calm down with his tackling. He got dinged for the final play where I put a video up where he took out several reporters in front of me by tackling a guy out of bounds. With a full-on hit out of bounds. Keely was thankful
it was like a body flying in the air. It was violent.
And it was the cat and mouse drill where a running back tries to get by a linebacker. There was one rep the entire day that he might have lost. And it was kind of a question. It was Chris Street, good running back from J. Sarah. They got by him. He did get a hand on him. You got to get two hands, though. So it looked like he lost one rep. And this is a guy that continues to go over. He loves the competition. He's running to the front of the line all the time.
He takes as many reps as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Another guy that looked really good, Noah Sewell, Penei Sewell's little brother, Penei Sewell's the offensive lineman from Utah that went to Oregon last year, was starting as a freshman. Noah Sewell is a guy who's grown into his body a little bit more this past year. We saw him at Under Armour camp last year. He looked really good. On the offensive side, Bryce Young throwing to Gary Bryant. Could that be a precursor of what we see at USC? Gary Bryant, the speedster from Corona Centennial. USC just got 3 guys from Corona Centennial. He looked really good. He made Elias Ricks look bad a couple times, beat him deep a couple of them. He ran a bevy of different routes and was catching balls on any DB that went in front of him. Now, he's not a big guy, but he is a speedster. He runs good routes, and he was open kind of pretty much all the time. Some other guys out there looked really good. Corey Foreman, the 2021 kid from Corona Centennial as well, who was kind of the bookend for Drake Jackson, kind of learned a lot from Drake Jackson last year. He was, he also was another guy who probably went a little outside the rules as far as the drill goes, because you're not supposed to bull rush, but he didn't really fully bull rush. He just, destroyed guys with strength instead of putting his full body into it, just pushing them backwards and running over people, and it created a little bit of controversy because people, why are they putting this guy up against him? Well, it was the final 5, so that guy actually earned his way into that competition. But Corey Foreman was really good. They tried to put bigger guys on him. He went around them. They put smaller guys on him. He went through them. So, he was really good, and he's going to be an upcoming junior. So that kid's only going to get better. That's another kid that's going to be on, a lot of teams' wish list going forward with guys like Justin Flo and, Elias Ricks, Bryce Young, a lot of talent out there. And I think we'll even see a lot of talent again when the regionals, the opening regionals come back to California for the Bay Area. Last year, they kind of put the two, side by side, in a 2 or 3 week span, and not a lot of talent went up to the Bay Area from Southern California. But I think you'll see a lot of Southern California talent go up to the Bay Area this year. So you'll see guys like DJ Uelele, who did not participate this past weekend. I think he'll be in the Bay Area. Some other guys like John Humphreys that we really like, they'll be up there as well. A lot of quarterbacks there, too. A lot of quarterbacks from Arizona, from different states came in. And you had guys that were committed to Purdue, Ohio State, Louisville, USC. There's a lot of quarterbacks that were committed trying to make their mark on this first stop of the Elite 11, trying to earn that invite to be able to go to the Elite 11, participate in that, and have their chance to be the top dog at the opening.
Yeah, go down the opening, which is going to be I think it's going to be in Dallas again. I don't know if they announced
Frisco,
that. Yeah, Frisco, Texas. So Gerard and I went last year, and that's where we saw Kyle Ford, USC signee, the highest ranked player on USC's board, catch like 18 or 19 touchdowns in that one weekend. So it's definitely something to look forward to. And some of those guys will go to the Bay Area because they want to get an invite to the opening if they didn't get one in LA.
So YouTube, I fixed the comment system. I think you need to refresh if you want to comment and have that the chat pop up.
Why did you turn it off to begin with,
Keely?
I did
you
not
want Ryan, shame on you. We actually have a live caller right now.
Yes.
His name is Little Fella the Gamer, which is interesting. Hello, little fella. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good at yourself.
I'm good.
I'm a great fan of the Trojans since Ricky Irvin.
Wow.
Oh, that was when I was in school. Yeah,
Yeah,
1989.
he played with the
Rose Bowl.
Redskins.
Yeah, 1989. I think was he Rose Bowl MVP? He might have been. They beat Michigan like 17-10 or something. That was my freshman year, and they sort of went downhill after that.
Yeah, drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, traded to the Washington Redskins in '91. Yeah.
Wow. So what's your question for the team?
7th round pick. My question is, do USC have any targets in the transfer portal as far as getting depth for the offensive line?
Yeah, it's a great question. Didn't get as many guys. I think 3 players in this offensive line class, and one of them, like Shotgun said, I'm sorry, Shotgun did say this, but it was on the podcast we recorded right before this, so you guys didn't hear this. But yes, Gino Quinones, who's from Hawaii, who's an early enrollee, he's mostly played defensive line, so he's transferring. He's going to transfer. He's going to switch positions and play offensive line. There's almost 2,000 players or so in the portal. We haven't heard any specific names of guys that USC is going after. There's still a couple rides left. I think Clay Helton has some opportunity. I don't know, maybe guys, from the comments at the press conference, Keely or Shotgun, did you feel like it wasn't going to be a huge priority, like something they would address next year? I don't know what you think. I'm not sure if they're going to find someone. They brought in somebody last year, and Shermer, we'll see if he plays a part, but I don't know if they're going to bring anyone this year.
There's a couple guys in the portal that could be potential immediate impact players. Guys are going to be immediately eligible. A guy like Parker Braun from Georgia Tech played there. He started for Georgia Tech. He's a guy you can bring in, and he will compete for a spot immediately. Now, is USC going after those guys? That's kind of the question. They lost 3 starters off the offensive line. You lose Chris Brown as your highest rated guy. Chuma Doga, your most pro potential, and then you lose Toa Lobana, your most experienced guy. So the offensive line has a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah.
So that would be an option, going out and getting a transfer that would be immediately eligible, and a guy that is basically a grad transfer. He's going to be immediately eligible. He can play for a year, kind of be a stopgap for you because you got some younger guys you think might can play later. We went through the offensive line during the Family Feud podcast, and there's going to be some issues if they have an injury. You're always going to have injuries on the offensive line. If they have one at the guard position, you got a lot of question marks then, because you're going to be playing a guy who has not played at all in college, in either Jacob Daniel or Frank Martin played it all on the offensive line. So, I think that if you have an opportunity to go get an offensive guard like Parker Braun from Georgia Tech, that's a guy I would target and go after. We'll see what they do. There's a couple other guys that are immediately eligible that they could go after, but we haven't really heard any names being thrown out as, we're really looking at this guy or anything like that. Drew Richmond, a guy from that played at Tennessee. He could be a guy that could come in and be a depth guy as well, compete immediately. Those are the kind of guys you want to go after. I don't think you really want to go out and find any tackles or guards, offensive linemen that are going to have to sit out a year. I think you should have confidence in your recruiting for the next year, even though I don't think it's a very deep class locally, to try to go that you'll be able to bounce back and have a better recruiting class next year. I don't think you necessarily want to bring in depth positions unless a guy can compete immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Helton did leave the door open for possible transfers, but like Sarkon said,
it didn't sound, I mean, and we haven't heard it like sources saying anything like, they're definitely trying, they definitely want to bring in an offensive line. I think if it works out, there might, those guys are eligible to be contacted, so we'll see what happens. But haven't heard anything specific. Like, yes, they're definitely trying to bring in a transfer.
Yeah. So thanks so much for the call,
Yeah.
little fellow the gamer. We actually have a Facebook question that I'm going to go to.
Okay.
Matthew James says, "Who is a pro comp to Bryce Young?"
Ooh, pro comp. What would you think?
The problem is his height. He's pretty short.
Yeah.
He's got kind of similar skill sets to a guy like Johnny Manziel in college. Obviously, that pro comp is not there because Johnny Manziel, unless you're counting Canada or whatever he's at now as pro. But I think that he's a guy that is going to be able to create stuff in the pocket, can make plays last a little bit longer. He's not. I mean, I think some people want to compare him to Russell Wilson because he's a shorter guy, but I don't think he's similar to Russell Wilson. I think he can run more than Russell Wilson. I think when he gets out of the pocket, he can be a danger there. I don't think he's quite Kyler Murray either.
Not that
I think
super athletic.
I think he's kind of somewhere in between Johnny Manziel and Kyler Murray. He wants to throw. He's a guy that wants to throw. We're not going to go Stephen A. Smith and call him Dwayne Haskins a running quarterback or anything here. But Bryce Young wants to throw, but when he gets out of the pocket, he can run, unlike Dwayne Haskins. But I think that he's somewhere in between maybe a Johnny Manziel and a Kyler Murray. Maybe not quite as athletic as Kyler Murray, because I mean the things you hear about him are like Reggie Bush once he gets out of the pocket.
Yeah.
But he can throw the ball. He obviously did really well this year with Brew McCoy, Michael Martinez. They had some other receivers there that he could throw the ball to. They'll be good again at modern day. You'll see that. But when the play breaks down, and that's kind of how they won a couple of early games, the offense wasn't really clicking. He was able to create plays on like a 4th and 5. I think it was, I don't remember if it was against Bishop Gorman or another team, but it was a 4th and 5. Looked like he was about to be sacked. He turns it into a 32-yard touchdown or something like that on a run. It was just an incredible feat. I think that's what he can do, but he'd rather throw the ball if he has a chance.
Yeah. And Keely put up some video of him too on the site, right? Like he's
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so you can go check that. Go to uscfootball.com if you want to see for yourself. We try to put up a lot of footage of the guys that USC's recruiting, so you can listen to what we have to say about him, but then you can watch yourself and think, I think he looks like blah, whoever.
Whoever, yeah. So you can check out Bryce Young at the opening, and a lot of the targets he threw to are guys that USC is interested in. So you can check that all out on uscfootball.com.
Yes.
We have some YouTube questions. Let me go to.
You finally let them in, huh?
I let them in. They're free to roam now, and they're asking a lot of questions. The read option says, does the media have access to winter workouts? If so, how do you rate the work being done so far?
We do not. We used to. We used to have, like during the Pete Carroll era, we could go watch all of the workouts. Now, then, the last several years, they've restricted. So if a coach is out there, so any strength coaches, we can't go and watch the workouts. But usually, we would be able to go watch the throwing. There typically hasn't been a lot of throwing the last couple of winters for whatever reason. It's been, Sparta used to do like 7-8 workouts before spring football, like just throwing, and we would go watch and film and check out the guys and everything, especially the early enrollees. But they haven't been doing it as much, or if they're doing it really on the down low. So I haven't heard too much about it. But yeah, they don't allow us to be at those workouts. There's some compliance rule or something they're saying. We used to be able to, but they don't let us do that anymore.
Yeah.
We actually have a live caller. I believe his name sounds familiar. I think he asked some questions to the Dan Weber podcast.
Okay.
I believe we have Eddie from Whittier on the line. Eddie, hello.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Hey, Eddie.
Awesome. First thing first, this is awesome. I love this new thing that we got going on. This is really awesome. So great job to you guys. My question is, it's a little on the recruiting side. I know G-Mart's not there this time, but I just get your guys' input. Justin Flo, that guy looks phenomenal. Do you guys know, how we can, how can we reel him in? I mean, we need that guy. I think you kind of do what it takes to bring that guy in of that nature. He's a freak of nature, that guy. I think we really need him. We could really use him. And do you think Clay Helton and company are going to do anything to mess that up? I know everybody's after him.
I think he's a priority. Thanks for the call too. He's a priority recruit, not just because of the player, but because when you lose some of the guys like Chris Steele and Brew McCoy, like all those guys we were talking about that were on that list, the preseason, you're like, that's a USC target. That's a guy that's normally going to go to USC. If you lose another group of those, it's not going to be a good thing. So I think just as perception wise, you need to get a guy like Justin Flo. Typical years, that's a guy that's going to end up at USC. I mean, as a player, we talked about him earlier. I mean, he's ridiculous, but you do need to get someone like that. I think that's got to be a huge priority for Clay Helton to turn the tide. Maybe they weren't recruiting as hard throughout the whole season. Maybe, I think there were some deficiencies as far as the recruiting practices go, and you're going to have to do it without T. Martin, who was your best recruiter on the staff. But I think you have to, whatever you need to do as Clay Helton, that's got to be a top priority for him.
I mean, per the top 247, per our rankings, there were 2 5-stars that went to the Pac-12. Kyle Ford and Kayvon Thibodeau going to Oregon. The 24/7 composite, Kyle Ford falls out of that.
Yeah.
So if you count that, then only 1 5-star player went to the entire Pac-12. And part of that is that USC and UCLA both have sucked.
Yeah.
And that's why you go 5-7. You have a terrible UCLA team, and you have all the Southern California talent has disbanded and left the area, and you're losing that talent not just to other Pac-12 schools, but you're losing it to Clemson coming in. As South Carolina gets Ryan Helinski, and Alabama's getting talent. Alabama's really hard on Justin Flo right now. That might be his leader right now. They're coming and picking and choosing. Georgia came in a couple weeks ago, laid out several offers for players in the 2020 class. Tennessee's been here giving out offers. Auburn, there's all these teams that are coming in and
they smell blood in the water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They see, well, if USC's struggling, well, that means we can go into Southern California. And if UCLA's not at least picking up some of the slack, which they're recruiting their own way with Chip Kelly, then you're seeing that talent leave. And you talk to those kids that were at the opening. You say, oh, well, I'm talking to this school and this school and this school. What about USC and UCLA? Well, a little bit. I'm still hoping they talk to me more, type of thing. You hear that too much from some of the local kids too. But you're seeing that happen. But how does a school like USC get a guy like Justin Flo who would normally be coming to USC? It's pretty simple. It's 3 letters, WIN. You win. Once you start winning, you win 10 games, you win 12 games, whatever, you're in the national championship conversation. That's where those type of players want to go.
Right.
Yeah.
There's very few, and these guys are kind of your program changers, but there's very few 5-star guys that go to a school that's really struggling. Every once in a while, you see a guy go to, and you're like, why in the world is that guy going there? Why are you going to Illinois or whatever it may be? And you kind of are baffled. Usually there's a connection. Oh, my parents both went here, whatever it may be. But players that are really good want to go where really good players are at and where the competition is really good because they want to take that next step to the NFL. What do they always say about the USC practices under Pete Carroll? They were harder than the games because of how the players were out there. So good players want to go where other good players are at, and they want to go where they're going to compete for national championships. They want that competition. Those guys like Justin Flo, like we just talked about, who was getting in, breaking line as many times as possible to get in to go extra reps at a thing like the opening. Why? Did he have to prove himself? Everybody knows he's the best linebacker in the country. Yeah. Everyone knows he's the best player in Southern California. Does he really have to prove himself over and over at these things? No, he wants to. He wants that. He thrives on it. He loves it. He loves hitting guys. If you put a defense together with Noah Sewell and Justin Flo as the 2 middle linebackers, man, watch out. There's going to be some helmets popping off and stuff. Those
Bodies
guys are ready to hit guys. So if some school can bring them in together, that'd be quite the coup.
Yeah, as far as Justin Flo goes, I did get to interview him at the opening. He said he's very close with Johnny Nansen. And when I asked, how often do you talk, he laughed and he was like, we text every single day. So he's very close to Johnny Nansen. He called USC home in the sense that they're close. He's close to them, both in location and in relationship. So that's definitely a guy you cannot lose, especially if you have him with that type of a relationship right now. But thanks, Eddie, for the call.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. I mentioned this a few times. I'll do it again. We were seeing something similar in the 1990s when USC was down, and there was people coming in, programs coming in. The big programs at the time were like Florida State, Miami, Florida. And they were picking guys. They would get dudes out of De La Salle. They'd get Southern California guys. The best players in Southern California, it was cool to go somewhere else where everyone else was good. Right now with UCLA not recruiting, you get Chip Kelly, which is a huge hire, but they're not recruiting like they should, be in Los Angeles. They're recruiting like they're at Boise State or something. They're not recruiting like they're at UCLA. USC obviously having 2 top 5 classes in a row, but this past year letting some of those guys go away. A lot of those guys from your big list go away. And, Washington and Oregon are doing well, but they're not strong enough to just take everyone from Southern California. When USC and UCLA are both down like this and the Pac-12 is struggling and we haven't seen a team make the playoff in a few years, that's just opens up. It's like chum in the water for the Alabamas, the Auburns. Texas got as many top 20 players in California as USC did. You're seeing, Ohio State. They came in, 2 guys at USC wanted on signing day, end up signing with Ohio State. So you're seeing a lot of that. They know there's talent on the West Coast, and they can poach. They don't need to recruit everybody, but they can poach different guys. There's enough programs doing it that you just can't be down for that long, because then you're going to start losing these guys, and it's going to be cool again to leave the state. Pete Carroll made it not cool to leave. He made it cool to stay. Now it's kind of being the cool thing to leave, and you got to reverse that trend. And if you're a USC fan, it's kind of on your shoulders. Not a fan, but if you're USC, it's on your shoulders to put that wall up, because that's the program that can do the most to stop it.
Yeah. And you see, if USC wins, they keep all those.
Yes,
keep those players. They're able to go out to Utah, to Seattle, to Washington, to Oregon, to get other players like they did a couple years ago with those recruiting classes. But it takes winning.
Yeah.
Let's go to a Facebook question from Raphael. He says, is this going to be an offense that Josh Follow, the tight end, can finally thrive in?
I think so. I think, Shotgun talked about this, I think, one of our last shows, maybe it was last week, or if you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, him and Chris Trevino actually put a story together that the USC tight ends were ranked last of all the positions on the USC offense. So, or the whole team, right? Like they were the worst ranked players. So the tight ends weren't utilized at all. I think they have to be utilized better in this offense. And I like Josh Follow a lot. I think he's really athletic. You talk to NFL guys, and they love his potential. Just the way you look at him, you're like, yeah, that guy can play. But they got to put him in good situations. He made a couple good plays last year, but I think there's going to be more opportunities, especially for a guy like him. He'll be playing H whatever, he'll be in one of those slot spots and an inside receiver. But I think he can do a lot of good things. He'll be a mismatch for sure.
And it depends on how much they trust the offensive line. Keely brought this up earlier during our podcast. How much do they trust the offensive line to be able to split those tight ends out? Or do you need to leave one of those guys in to help out? You saw last time there weren't a lot of targets over the middle, in part because they would go two tight ends and leave at least one tight end in, sometimes two tight ends, because they weren't trusting the offensive line to give JT Daniels enough time.
Raphael's got a cool-ass picture, too, on his Facebook page.
Ryan loves the Facebook
He loves commenting on the pictures.
I like the pictures. There's a good picture, Raphael. We have a question on Periscope.
Okie dokie.
It's Millie003. What's your thoughts about recruiting, about the impact of the AAF on recruiting? So the Allegiance of American Football, how that would have an impact on recruiting. I'm not sure. I think it's just another opportunity for players. We saw Damian Mama and Demetrius Wright, former USC safety. We saw those guys playing for the San Diego Fleet, I think it was. There's some other guys spread around. I don't think it would have any impact. It's just another opportunity for guys to be seen on television. So I don't think it hurts.
I feel sorry, is it being marketed as like a minor league of the NFL? I know it's not, but the fact that it was on the NFL Network, it's kind of interesting how they're positioning it.
Yeah, so Bill Polian is one of the co-founders, and I heard him on with Colin Cowherd today, and he's one of the co-founders of this league. They're doing another one. They're doing the XFL next year too, but the NFL's wanted to have a developmental league for a long time. Now, it's not. These are mostly veterans and stuff.
They tried NFL Europe, and that didn't really work.
Yeah, so I think the goal is to be some sort of a developmental league. I think it's going to be, CBS is broadcasting. They're basically, it looks like they're partners with the NFL, and I think the NFL, Colin was talking about this too. They like to be people talking about football during like the basketball All-Star game or during baseball season, all that kind of stuff. Whatever they can do, they like to go after the other leagues. This is just another opportunity to do that. I don't think we're seeing high school players jump to that. But that could have some impact in the future. But this is more of a veteran league at least for now.
Yeah, Stabbers asked, is there any thoughts on the new league? I think it just gives guys an extra opportunity to showcase their abilities. I think that's great if there's teams in Southern California that helps out USC because they're going to be able to, you see more Southern California players be able to play for those teams, I think. So I think it only helps USC guys in the future. Now, the question is, the XFL, there's been talk about they would potentially take high school players. If that happens, one, it's going to be bad football. Two, you're going to have much more chance of an injury if a guy that is coming out of high school and is even if he's a 330 pound, or he's Damian Mama coming out of high school at 400 pounds versus if he's going up against Stevie Toikolivatu, he's going to just destroy him. Because Stevie coming out of college was 25. He was 25 when he got to USC. So coming out in the NFL, he's 26. If that guy's going up against 18-year-old Damian Mama at 400 pounds, he's just going to destroy him at all times. I don't think it's going to be good football. I don't think the teams are going to really go after that. Now, and the question becomes, what athlete decides, I'm ready at the high school level, I'm ready to go play, but also that I don't want to go the traditional route. Who says that I'm going to go play in this league for 3 years until I can play in the NFL rather than playing at college? Who says that's better football and will help me develop more? I don't know that it'd be. Now, I think the XFL or whichever league would do that would have to show over a 3 or 4 year period that, hey, this is a viable option, and I don't think that's the case right now.
Yeah.
On Facebook, we have a question from Isaac who says, any news on a strength and conditioning coach?
Same old, same old.
Yeah, same old stuff. So you still have it's Keith Belton, right? Is that
Belton.
Belton. That's
Thump.
Still Thump. Yes, running the workouts.
Belton.
I think a source I talked to the other day, like a few days ago, was like, yeah, something should be announced tomorrow. That didn't happen. So I don't know. It's like
Sources, man.
it's just kind of like one of those things.
One of those things. We actually have a live caller on
nice.
the line. James from Diamond Bar. James, hello.
Hi, Keely.
Hi. What's your question for the team?
Well, just want to say hi to Ryan and everybody. Thanks for taking calls.
Hi, James. Yeah, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, class of 14, watch Matt Barkley and everybody. Just really concerned. I know we have to worry about defense on recruiting, including getting D-line and O-line recruits. But I've been noticing, especially, with blue chip recruits, kind of getting pushed from out-of-state programs like Oregon, Washington, and Texas. I've been concerned with just reading up on, Gerard and other insiders' information about top wide receiver talents, not just really looking at USC. I know Gary Bryant seems to be locked in, but Johnny Wilson left us out of his list. And my question really is, with this upcoming season for 2019, do you believe a really good winning season and maybe a good bowl performance kind of shifts the tide of the recruiting climate? Or are we going to see a lot of prime California talent look out of state instead of USC?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think Shotgun said it really well with the WIN winning. It's a tough early stretch. I don't know if it matters about the bowl game and things like that, but you're talking about the first 6 games of the season, some really rough road games. You're playing Washington, you're playing Notre Dame, you're playing Utah and Stanford. I mean, Fresno State, BYU. I think I named them all right there. So if you do pretty well in those games, and I think momentum has shifted, and people are not talking about firing Clay Helton again and all that kind of stuff. If not, if you're struggling through those games, then I think all bets are off. If Clay Helton continues to be an embattled coach, it's going to be really hard to get the positive messages out there to recruit and things like that. So then it might be, if he really struggles, and then you got to make a change at the end of the season, or maybe they do it in the middle of the season again. I don't know, but I think you got to start those first 6 games. You got to do pretty well, or I think it's going to be tough to get some kind of recruiting momentum.
Yeah, the how you play on Saturdays will determine the momentum of your recruiting.
Yeah.
If you win games, then your momentum will pick up. If you lose, then you're going to go in the same direction that you're currently on, which is down. Now, when it comes to wide receiver recruiting, it's never really an issue for USC because there are a ton of receivers come out of Southern California. Now, a guy like Johnny Wilson, obviously you want to get a guy like that, 6'6", 240, I think, or 220, can go up and make catches, can run routes and stuff. But there are some talented guys that USC is in the mix for, even though Johnny Wilson has cut them out. I think they could get back in the mix for that one, with a good season and start playing well, those type of things. The Calabasas guys right now, they're just, you got Chris Claiborne, USC All-American, as your head coach.
Yeah.
You got Curtis Conway, USC All-American, as your wide receivers coach. And none of the Calabasas kids really have interest in USC because USC's not recruiting them hard, and because the way USC's season has played out, Jermaine Burton's another guy that they could get in on the mix on if they talk to him a little bit more. USC was his top team when he came out. He moved from Georgia out to California, but they haven't really kept in communication as much as some other schools. You've got some receiver options there, guys like LV Bunkley Shelton, guys like John Humphreys. There's a lot of guys in Southern California. That's why there's always the complaints on the P, at least, of why are we always recruiting those receivers and not getting offensive and defensive alignment? Well, there's receivers in Southern California you can go get, so that's part of the reason why you do it, where it's harder to get offensive and defensive alignment in Southern California than it is say if you're Alabama recruiting in the South, where they breed them a little bit differently, and usually those guys are ready to play when they come out of high school. So I don't think USC is going to have too many issues with the wide receiver, but they need to add some depth there.
Yeah.
They only got 5 guys currently on the roster. If you have everybody who's said they're going to enter the portal, if they do end up leaving, you'll add some freshmen coming in, but you want to add some depth there where especially if you're going to do this air raid offense where you're going to have 4 guys on the field potentially at all times as receivers, you got to have some bodies.
Mm-hmm.
We had a Periscope one real quick.
Thanks, James, for calling, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, James. Brian just wants to know, what do you guys expect from Isaac Taylor Stewart in 2019?
He's got a chance to be a starting cornerback. Those spots are going to be open right now. You lost so many bodies in the secondary that Isaac Taylor Stewart, Elijah Griffin, and Greg Johnson are basically your 3 cornerbacks. Maybe you move Chase Williams back outside if you want. I think he's a lock to be a nickelback starter if he stays at that spot. And these guys, the new guys coming in, will have a chance to compete as well. But those guys have the experience. You got Isaac Taylor. You got Elijah Griffin and Greg Johnson coming off shoulder surgeries. So I think Isaac Taylor Stewart has an advantage there in that he's going to be healthy for the spring, it sounds like. So if he's healthy and the other guys aren't getting reps,
he's going to get a lot of work in the spring.
He's going to be dog tired, I can tell you that.
We have a question from Jasper Smith on YouTube. He says, with spring ball coming up, which player on offense and defense will make the most noise and or become an impactful player?
Oh, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. No call from Jasper this week, I guess.
I'm going to start with Solomon Tuliaupupu.
Interesting. We did get a question if he will be healthy for spring.
We expect him to be healthy. That combination of him and Palaie and Naitiote playing in the middle that you expect to have for the next couple of years, that could be really, really fun to watch. I want to see him play this spring. He didn't get to play at all this past year, but I think he's a guy that kind of forgotten about him because he didn't play at all last year, but I think can make an impact this spring, and people will be like, oh, yeah, well, I want to see this guy on the field.
I like him.
I think Palaie Naitiote stepping up in that Mike role, what he does with Cam Smith being gone. If he steps up as a leader, I asked him at the last game, the Notre Dame game, what does that look like going forward now that you're the guy there? And he sounded excited to step up in that role. So I'm just curious, play-wise, but also leadership-wise, does he step up in that role?
Yeah. I think Jay Tufele, too, is going to take another step forward. We redshirted that first year, played pretty well last year. I think he's going to continue to grow into his body and to his play. And, he's going to have a different defensive line coach this year, but I expect some big things from Jay.
What about on offense?
Austin Jackson. I think he takes a step forward, takes over as a leader on the offensive line, maybe even on the offense as a whole, and starts living up to that pro potential he has.
I'm going to go Stephen Carr, just thinking that he's going to be – he just wasn't healthy last year. He gets some of that – you hope that he gets some of that zip in his step or whatever back and, that spring and stuff. So we'll see. But this is a perfect offense for him. So if he could, catching balls out of the backfield, if he's healthy, I think he can have a real breakout spring.
I'm thinking Marquise Stepp. I think a year under his belt, maybe he shows up. Who knows?
Especially if Stephen Carr is not as healthy.
Yeah,
then,
true. That's a big question mark there. Jinda on YouTube says, who replaced BKU?
Chad Kawa.
You had it right to begin with.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of
Chad K, as they call him. Coach called Chad K. Chad Kua'aha, I think.
There's a lot of.
Are you supposed to say that intensely?
And they say cow. It's like you're supposed to say cow. Like that's what the pronunciation. Yeah, in the pronunciation guide. I should be better at this. I go to Hawaii a lot. Pronounce these names.
Chad K. How about Chad K?
Yeah, Chad K is good.
We have a Facebook question. Oh, sorry. Did you?
No. That's So we'll see. I didn't know too much about him. He's been in the Pac-12. He was up at Oregon State. Last at Boise State. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. Different approach. I mean, I think BKU was a green coach because it was really his first time going through. But I thought he was a competent recruiter. I think he helped that effort out a lot. We'll see what Chad K is able to do.
We have a Facebook question from Gabriel. He says, do you think Tim Drevno can instill tough nastiness to the O-line group? The last 5 years, the O-line has been underperforming and lacked toughness.
Super important. You gotta do that. I mean, just looking at what the offensive line was doing the last few years, you wanted continuity because they had switching offensive line coaches every year. They had continuity, and it just didn't look like this was a tough offensive line. I'm not saying it's all Neil Callaway's fault. I think it was just the way this team practiced, just the way everyone, just carried themselves. So I think that has to be, and you look at USCfootball.com, Dan Weber put up his 13 commandments, things that have to change in 2019. There's some really interesting stuff there, but that toughness on the offensive line, I believe, was one of the commandments. We might have talked about it in a couple of them. You have to do that. If they're going to play soft up front, it's just don't even show up.
I wonder if Dan meant to write 10 commandments and was like, I still got more to go.
He wrote that at the beginning. He was like, we're not going to limit this 10. Moses had 10, but we're going to tell you everything that needs to happen. So it's pretty funny. You can read it.
Funny. Did you go to East Rutherford, Ryan?
Did I go?
Yes.
To high school or something?
Yes.
No.
Someone said they played with you at East Rutherford. The person who just asked that question. So
no,
apparently they're a liar.
Not
Gabriel.
I played
on YouTube.
Okay, so I think I played in East Rutherford for like a volleyball tournament. It was like the East Coast Championships or like our high school club team or something. But
Did you play PSU?
Penn State.
Yes, I know. It's just that's what they wrote.
PSU. Did I? No, I wasn't. Like I was.
Okay,
I was a
whatever.
club.
It doesn't matter. Sorry.
Thanks for that sidetrack there, guys.
Sorry.
We have a question from Gerald on Facebook who says, do you see any vocal leaders on this team? SC needs a hype man bad.
That's a really good point. You do need some. It just had a lot of quiet guys lately. Who's going to be like the vocal dude?
Austin Jackson said he was going to be. He said
Yeah.
my class is going to be louder and be more of leaders going into this offseason. We won't really know until we see them in the spring. I think on the offensive side, that's what they need. I mean, they've had it on the defensive side. You've had guys, even they're quieter. You had guys like Cam Smith and Iman Marshall, Marvell Tell. Other players went to them, looked at them for advice. Took their whatever they said as the truth. But on the offensive side, it's been when things aren't going right, who's going to come over and say something? It just doesn't seem like there was any personalities that were going to say something. So I think that you need a guy like Austin Jackson, you need a guy like Michael Pittman or Tyler Vaughns, one of those guys to step up. Even the guys that were more vocal, like Aka Cedric Ware on the team last year, like they still deferred to other players. So
okay.
I think you need guys that are more that are willing to do that and that aren't going to step back from it, but go in the front of the team and call people out if need be or whatever it is. That's a question that's been kind of brewing for a couple of years. We just still haven't seen it on the offensive side in particular. So we'll see if it changes this year.
Yeah, someone's got to step up and play that role. And I think he was talking about the game. USC played Penn State in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I went to that. Maybe I'd met.
You didn't play. That was
I didn't play.
Yeah, I got it wrong.
Oh, okay. No, I was at the game. There was like one or two games. I think that was in the early 90s or something. Yeah. So sorry about the confusion there.
Anyway, Jesse asked on YouTube, is USC an option for grad transfer Justin Murphy from UCLA, transferred to UCLA from Texas Tech? If you remember, he got a 6 year of eligibility and then immediately said, like 2 days later, was like, thanks everything UCLA, I'm out.
Interesting.
I don't know that he's an option that you want because he couldn't start at UCLA consistently. So I don't know if he's a guy that's going to come in and immediately start for USC either. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a guy I'd be looking for.
And Seth wants to know about Jalen Phillips too. We kind of talk about him.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions about that too.
Yeah. So I mean, I agree with Shotgun. Probably not there, but Phillips I think is still. Gerard talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think it's still a possibility. I mean, USC needs pass rushing, so that he would be a guy that would help there.
Yeah, we get asked every week, and not really much has changed in the last couple weeks on that front. We haven't heard much new, at least I have not. So I don't think that. I think that one we're just still waiting to hear more from him.
Yeah.
The call line is officially open, so if you have a question for us,
nice.
you can call. Yes. We have a Facebook question from John. He says, do you know how much of a recruiter Graham Harrell is? Can he become a force like T. Martin was?
So I don't know that what exactly his recruiting style is. However, USC kind of had a little junior day last week, brought some of the linemen in. Miles Murrell, Jonah Monheim was there as well. I think Bryce came in last week. There's brought in some of those junior guys that they're coveting in that 2020 class. And from all indications from the people I talked to, from some of the recruits I talked to, they all were excited about the offense and what they talked to Graham Harrell. They liked what they saw and heard from him. So I don't know exactly. I don't know that anyone's quite the dynamic recruiter that T. Martin was. I mean, He was the National Recruiter of the Year for 1 year at least. So I think he's a little bit different for Graham Harrell to come in. He's got to build those relationships with the high school coaches and stuff in Southern California. But I think so far there's been good signs from what I've heard from other players.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan. It was just a small sample size, but the first thing Graham Harrell did when he flew to California before even going to SC, he went down to Mater Dei and he talked to Bryce Young, the 2020 5-star QB commit, and he talked to him about the offense and where he sees him fitting in the air raid. And he was like, he hadn't even moved in yet, and he came to see. Bryce Young said this, and he came to see me, and that made a big impression. So putting that foot forward. On the first foot coming off the plane, I think it's a good sign for the effort that he's going to put going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think, typically you're not having your coordinators be your best recruiters. That just, there was a lot of deficiencies as far as recruiters go, and T. Martin was the best. So even though he was a coordinator, I think you're going to see him recruit quarterbacks really well. He can help all the other position coaches close with guys. I mean, his offense will be an appealing factor, but I don't think he's going to be the guy that's out there like T. Martin was, closing dudes that that other coaches really weren't able to or anything like that. So I think he'll be focused more on quarterbacks, but his system will help bring in people. I think he will be an assistant out there, but I don't think he's going to be the T. Martin. I don't think you need him to be the T. Martin. You got to get some of these other guys to step up and recruit.
You said that you don't normally see the coordinators be lead recruiters like that. You also don't usually see the head coach being as active as Clay Helton is, which tells you a lot about some of the assistants that were on the previous staff.
Yeah.
Not recruiting, that you needed your head coach and your coordinators to step up for them, and the recruiting staff as well to step up for them. Hopefully that changes for USC's sake, because there's a lot of players out there who said, well, I would be more interested if they were talking.
I haven't heard that much. Yeah. And that, that's where if you don't have – USC has a really good support staff on the recruiting side. It's just very small. There's not enough bodies. And so you have some – part-time recruiters on the staff, or you did at least before. You don't have enough people in the support system, on the recruiting help side. And so some guys are going to fall through the cracks. And then later on, they're like, we didn't hear from that guy very much, but I got 50 letters from Georgia and Auburn and Alabama. It's like, it makes a difference.
So we have a live caller, I believe.
Yes.
Matt from Pennsylvania. Hello, Matt. Are you on the line?
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good,
I have a quick question. Hey, so what do you guys think is the biggest strength on the team and the biggest weakness going into this 2019 team, going into 2019 season?
Good question.
Good question.
I think you start with the weaknesses there are, is the coaching staff going to develop guys? Or is the coaching staff going to help lead this team instead of it just being, hey, we're going off talent? Are they going to put them in good positions and make those adjustments in games that we didn't necessarily see in the past? So I think the coaching is a bit of a weakness. And it's a question mark a little bit now with Graham Harrell coming in, with some of the changes they made. But going into the season, I think that's something where you start that as a weakness. If you look at position by position, we could go there and look at strengths and weaknesses too. I
would probably go, I'm going to stick in I think as far as the receivers go, it's not as deep as you would like, but with Tyler Vaughns and Michael Pittman, and you could, like Devin Williams that could emerge. There's a lot of guys, a lot of bodies there. Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's some studs, a bunch of 5-stars in that group. I probably would put that as the strongest position, knowing they're going to be in an air raid offense. They'll probably, they'll be open instead of catching contested balls all the time. As far as deficient, it might be somewhere in like the back 7, I would say, for the defense. I
was going to go secondary. When you lose pretty much your entire secondary, having to replace it, that's a weakness going.
But replacing like Porter Gustin and Cameron Smith too, like you could go in the middle of the defense too. I probably lean towards the secondary, but that's where the focus I think would be in the back 7.
I think it's different when you have Pali and Itiote waiting there, and you've got guys that played that rush in because Porter Gustin's been injured the last 2 years, versus the back 5 on that secondary, where you got we think Elijah Griffin, ITS, and Greg Johnson are at the cornerback spots. Talanoa Hufanga played really well in his short stint, but who's healthy? Shoulder injury. There's just a lot of question marks going into that. That's my biggest weakness.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Nothing different, Keely?
I was working behind the scenes,
that's okay.
So I don't have a thought prepared right now, but
just put you on the spot.
I do think DB depth is an issue in the sense of if you want to instill culture change, you can't really tackle much if you don't want to lose bodies there.
I don't know that you can do much right now. The question is going to be how many DBs you even have going in the spring.
Spring might be tough.
Healthy DBs.
That's why. They can practice because you got shoulder surgery guys, you got guys coming off injuries, you got guys. There's just with the transfers out and everything else. Like you're going to be looking at walk-ons getting a lot of playing time right now.
Yeah, I think strength is new blood. Having Graham Harrell there, I think having something just new is good for this team. The continuity got a little rough, I believe.
Hey, put some likes in there. So a whole bunch of people just put little hearts going. It's going to be
That's
Valentine's Day
Periscope for
tomorrow.
you.
Periscope was hearting
true.
it up. Yeah, like give us some
Shouts
likes
to-
on this stuff, man. Come on.
I'm gonna go to our overview shot. I can't figure out a way to like go to the overview.
Hi, overview shot. Yeah, I mean, you can just like leave it there while we're talking. They can look at that for a little while.
True,
It's
I
different.
guess so. Shotgun, do you see any YouTube questions?
Yeah, I got a couple going back to recruiting. What are the chances of Kendall Milton, the running back from Clovis, going to USC next season? It was between USC and Alabama, but leaning to the Trojans. If they win, USC will have an opportunity to be in the final 2 or 3 for all these big time talented players in California. Kendall Milton has been to USC for the last, I think, 3 years. I think as he was an 8th grader, he's been coming to USC for games and stuff, and USC's made him a priority when he's been in town to make sure that they're recruiting him. He's the top running back in the nation right now, I believe, off the top of my head. So, yes, he's a high priority as well. Even though it's not Southern California, it's still a California kid they definitely want to get. Another recruiting question, can USC get in on the cornerback Ricks from Mater Dei? Is that a dead issue at this point? No, they're still in it.
Yeah.
He's committed to LSU. LSU has been producing DB talent in the NFL for decades.
Yeah.
So that's why he's very interested in. Again, if USC wins, it makes it much more attractive to stay home. Go where his mom and dad both went, I believe it was.
Give him a reason to stay home.
Yeah.
You have to give him a reason.
And I talked with his mom a little bit, at the opening, and she talked about how he's just kind of you always wonder with these kids like that train all the time and really focused. Are they missing out on their childhood? Kind of, are they missing out on that? But some kids love it. When you go and you do what do they say? What's the saying? If you do what you love every day,
you never work a day of your life. Yeah.
And if they love it, that's the type of kid he is. He loves to go train, loves to focus on on his football abilities and his skill sets. So that's the type of player that you need. Those are the type of kids you want, not the ones that are just completely gifted and. Well, they get by on it. They coast on the fact that they're really talented, just God-given ability. Whereas, guys that go want to get themselves better every day, those are the type of kids that you really want in your program. So that's the type of guy you want to get. And one more on recruiting. If USC lands Justin Flo, do you think he could start over Solomon or EA?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean...
You'd like to get all those guys on the field at the same time if you could.
Oh, yeah. Put them all together. And put Noah Sewell in there, too, and we'll just have a hard-hitting linebacker core.
Yeah.
I think he's the best linebacker I've possibly seen in high school. I know a lot of people said a lot of very, very positive things about EA coming out of high school. I think I would take Justin Flo over any of those guys. So, yeah, I think he can get on the field.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Facebook question from OJ, I believe. How long would USC implement the 5-2 defense under Clancy Pendergast? Does it make more sense going with a 4-3 in the future?
The thing is like it's it's a 5-2, but they rarely end their quote unquote base defense. They're like 12% of the time last year. I'd have to look up the numbers, but much less than they did their nickel. Even doing some different things they did. A little bit more than you would expect when you have that as your base.
Yeah,
defense.
the nickel's the base. Like they play that all the time, and you just don't.
Which is really a 4-2-5.
And this isn't like the 5-2, like when I think it was John Robinson was. There's not 5 defensive linemen up there.
Yeah.
It's just the different looks. But that's I don't think he's changing his style. Like that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna have more speed out there. He likes tall, long, guys with the length in the secondary. There's just kind of what he likes, and I think. If you get some of the defensive linemen playing better, then you might see another guy with his hand on the ground. But it's really just like who he feels comfortable with and which guys are going to put out there.
Yeah, and they ran some different 3-4 and 4-3 looks more this season than we've seen in the past couple of years since I kind of track all those things. But I don't think you're going to see a true 4-3 look. You're going to have 4 guys with their hand on the ground. Even if you count the outside linebackers they use now, the rush end and the predator. If you count those as defensive linemen, it's still not a true 4-3 because they keep 2 linebackers. They like the 5 DBs because you have so many spread offenses in the Pac-12 in particular that unless you're seeing Stanford, you usually stick with the nickel defense as your base.
Right.
We actually have a live caller.
Another one.
Ta-da!
Wow.
Another one. Thanks everyone for calling in. I believe we have Dominic from HB on the line.
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Hi,
Good. How are you?
Is
Thanks
it
for calling.
Hermosa or Huntington Beach?
Yeah.
Probably
Which
Huntington Beach.
Oh,
yeah, that's
okay.
really the HB, I guess. I live in Hermosa, but still, whatever.
I always say HB, and people always confuse me as well, or confuse whether it's Huntington Beach or Hermosa Beach.
Either one is
But
good. I don't think you can go wrong with.
Huntington's a much more prominent city than Little Hermosa, but we'll go with that. That's Surf City and all that stuff.
So what's your question for the team?
Anyway, hold on. I love you guys' show, by the way. I listen to everything. I read everything, and I watch everything. I'm so diehard.
Wow,
thank you. We appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you could call in. That's awesome.
My question is, if all are healthy, who do you think are the projected starters on defense? Sorry, I'm kind of nervous.
No,
the whole defensive starting group. We can go through that.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
guess.
Okay.
That's a chore. All right.
No, Ryan, be nice.
Well, no. I'm not saying it to be mean. I was like, okay, that's a significant question. All right.
You should have called in next week after Shotgun and I do our defensive preview pod. I would know this way better off the top of my head.
Pull up the our scholarship.
We'll pull
distribution
up the scholarship chart real quick
so we can take
Throwing
a
us
look.
a curveball over here.
I like it though. That's good.
So first off, you're gonna have John Houston in the middle. He's gonna be at the will spot. You're gonna have EA at the middle linebacker spots. That's where you're gonna start with. That's the base of your defense. Those two guys in the middle. On your defensive line, you're obviously going to have Jay Tufele as your starter, along with, that's the question mark. Who's he going to play beside? Are you going to put Marlon Tuipulotu up there and have a true nose tackle and let Tufele kind of create some havoc there, or Brandon Peely, those two guys? Those two guys will be battling for it. Marlon Tuipulotu had won that job before. That's who you would expect to see there. What do you do with Christian Rector?
Yeah, is it going to just take Porter's spot, or how effective was he there? I kind of feel like he's trusted enough that he'll run that spot for a while. Like he'll have the opportunity.
I would try to get more creative in the offseason. I would try to get more creative and use him in some different ways because he's so versatile. Use him as that Porter Gustin spot, but use him with his hand down at times inside and move him around because he's really good at getting the quarterback. But I would try to match him up. I'd move him around to try to get some matchups where he can face, one of their weaker offensive linemen or do different things like that. But he's going to be on the outside, you expect, with Jordan Iosefa on the other side.
Yeah.
That's been where they've been at before. Now, do some of the younger guys, do Hunter Echols, Kana'i Mauga, do those guys get in the mix? Do they start battling? Abdul Malik McClain got some run at the end of the season as well at outside linebacker. Those guys, I think they're going to be in the mix there. You'll see rotations on the interior with Jacob Lichtenstein. What do they do with Connor Murphy? That's the question still that we've been wondering for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But Liam Jimmons got in there. He was really good. Was one of their more effective pass rushers, so you might see him in some third and long situations. We know what they're going to do with the linebackers in the middle. At the cornerback position, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but you got Greg Johnson, Elijah Griffin, and ITS are kind of your returners there. In the slot position, you got Dominic Davis and Chase Williams probably. And then at safety, I would guess you have the trio of, if all healthy, C.J. Pollard, Isaiah Polamau, and Talanoa Hufanga.
Yeah, C.J. Pollard tweeted something today. Did you? I don't know if you guys saw it.
Just a little workout clip video.
Is there something like that? Yeah.
He was at the opening.
Yep.
Oh, he was there too. Yeah, I mean,
fact.
he's a guy that I think could be a vocal leader too. But they didn't seem like they went to him a lot when they had problems in the with the injuries last year. So maybe with a different with a different secondary coach, a whole different outlook. Maybe he's a guy that he's a veteran in that secondary in the safety group for sure, and he can be vocal. That maybe we see a lot more of C.J. Pollard this time.
Well, I think it's going to be between those three guys. I don't think any of those three guys are necessarily guys that want to move in the nickelback spot. So I think you'll see even potentially a rotation. If you remember Marvell Tell, Leon McQuay, and Chris Hawkins, the Rose Bowl year when they all played together and kind of rotated at those safety spots as well.
Yeah, I kind of think we're going to see a lot of Chase Williams. This is my gut for.
I think he's going to be the starting nickelback.
Yeah.
Is he your spring standout? You always have a spring standout, right?
I don't know. He might be. He's in the running.
After you had Tyler Vaughn, do you have a legacy now that you have to predict someone each spring?
I've been doing pretty good with some of these.
Solomon Tuliabubu.
Well, thanks, Dominic, for calling in, and thank you for watching and reading and
we appreciate that. This is awesome. All the calls have been great. And it's really cool. People are excited to call in. We're excited to have you call in.
I know. So thank you.
This is unique. This is different. No one really does anything like this. So
it's true. And the line is open again if you would like to be heard.
We'll probably start to wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll be wrapping it up soon.
It's like Valentine's Day tomorrow. People can get ready. I think our, Chris Trevino in the other room's got a super date.
He has a
night.
Hot date tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, put you on blast right now.
That's on blast. That's a positive.
That's true. I'm happy you know Chris.
But just talking about him, he does you acknowledge his existence on the air.
He did say that Chase is his pick for spring.
Oh, Chris! All right.
He's calling his shot right now.
Chris
so back off, Ryan. He said.
So I can't.
He said, yeah. Chris said that.
I'll pick someone else, Chris. Sorry.
A couple more YouTube questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Will Marquise Stepp move up the depth charts this season and surpass Carr or Malapai? I don't necessarily think so, especially if Carr is healthy. I think that he gets back in the mix, and I think it's a 1-2 punch with him and Malapai. And then when you need kind of a heavy back or a short yardage situation, you can use Marquise Stepp. He can be a change-up guy. I think they'll rotate. You saw Cedric Ware, Stephen Carr, and Vi all play at the same time, in games. And running backs are like offensive linemen. You always have injuries.
Yeah.
Guy gets an ankle tweaked. So he'll get opportunities, I think. I don't think he'll necessarily jump over those other guys, though.
We had a White Knight on Periscope real quick. Will Graham Harrell be up in the press box or on the sideline?
Got that question on YouTube as well. And the answer I was going to give is we don't know.
We don't know.
We won't really know until they do a scrimmage, a mock game or a scrimmage, and they, because they'll move the coordinators up. If it's at Howard Jones, they'll put them on the baseball field. And they give them the headsets so they can work on doing the calls from up above and stuff. So
I kind of think it's going to be on the field just because he's the quarterback coach, and you want to be able to talk with the quarterbacks and stuff.
He's the offensive coordinator too.
He is. I mean,
do you know what he did?
Mike Leach is
North Texas?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Look that one up.
Interesting. We have a Facebook question from Renee, I believe. He says, "Will there be an open competition at QB, or is the coaching staff sold on JT Daniels?"
Anytime you get a new coordinator, everything is open. Yeah. So JT's got to prove himself to Graham Harrell. Graham Harrell doesn't know JT from the guy walking down the street when he came in. So, you got to prove yourself. Will he likely be the first choice to start with? Yes. But he's still got to prove himself. And that means everything's open. There will be, they've said it will be a QB competition.
Yeah.
And they said it will be even reps. So everybody will get their chance. But I think JT will end up winning it again.
I agree with that. Clay Helton was asked about that specifically during the signing day press conference, and that's what he said. So, but I think JT will win the job.
One Blue Love 23 on YouTube says, "I wonder if Stephen Carr's injury affects his mentality."
Yeah, definitely. There's always a psychological effect of being injured. You're so used to being out there and being the guy, and then especially if it's something like your back, and you come back and you just don't feel like you don't have that burst like you normally would, it affects you psychologically. So you got to work through that. You got to work through not only the injury, but also the psychological effects of the injury. So that's something that maybe he takes the step and gets over that hump, and you see him bounce back. And it's not just you see the burst, but then you see the confidence that comes with that burst of being able to make guys miss in the open field.
We had one on Periscope. I couldn't really read his name. It's like kind of a bunch of weird letters. But does Vavae Malapai have good hands?
I mean, he caught the ball last year. I think he led the team with the most receptions by a running back, so I would say so.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty versatile player, so can't sleep on him. But, I think if Stephen Carr is healthy, you're going to see some explosive plays from him.
Daniel Figueroa on Facebook says, "How many scholarships does USC have left for the season?"
I got to update the chart. I think the last I didn't put. Yeah, I haven't put the guys that signed on signing day in there yet, but it's in the. I think it's like the low 80s. Like there should be a few. There should be still a few rides left, but I got to update that to make sure. I don't know if you guys did or not.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I got it.
Some people, looking back through the YouTube comments, some people are upset with my statement that I would take Justin Flo over Palier and Natiote.
Oh, they don't
coming
like
out of high school. Now, Palier, I think he was the defensive player of the year, I believe. But who's to say Justin Flo's not this year? I mean, he's the top-rated linebacker in the country, just as Palier Natiote was. And I think I've seen Justin Flo play more in person, so that's what my pick is.
Yeah, I think
it's like a number 3 ranking versus number 3 ranking, I think, in their respective classes. So.
Yeah, I think a feather in EA's cap is there was a lot of linebackers in that class, and he was a standout. I don't know if this is as deep of a linebacker group for 2020 for Justin Flo around him. But
so you're saying EA, even though he at the point that Justin would come in, he's played like 3 years at that point, you'd still take Justin over EA at that point?
No, I said coming out of high school, I would take.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the question was, could he start over Solomon or EA? I said yes, he could.
That's what I'm saying. You said you think he can start over EA, who's at that point would have played for 2
probably
years.
He would start over Solomon Tulipupu.
Okay, but you said
either.
Okay. Just
a
checking.
little Family Feud action.
We've reached over the top of the hour, so if you want to do some rapid fire questions, one last caller. If you want to call in, we'll take you. Any YouTube questions? I haven't given as much love to YouTube today.
Sure. And who's on the Urban Meyer talk?
Oh my goodness.
No.
That's why I haven't given love to YouTube.
No.
It's unfortunate. Like Bob Stoops is becoming a general manager and coach or whatever. I think it's the XFL. So that apparently he's taken himself. Is it the XFL or maybe the AAF? I don't remember. But
and Michael Singletary is doing the same thing in one of them. So they've done a good job of getting some name brand guys there. And you would think Bob Stoops, if he's going to come back.
Steve Spurrier's coaching in there. I mean, Rick Neuheisel. Shout out to, if you want to, our new guy Grayson Weir put a video up of that. If you remember the 2009 USC UCLA game where USC was up 21-7 and Pete Carroll took a knee and Rick Neuheisel called timeout with under a minute left, and then Matt Barkley threw a long bomb to Damian Williams, and so that was a fun moment to relive if you're a USC fan.
But did you think about that? Do you think that angered the football gods? Because what has USC done since then? The Rose Bowl was spectacular.
Yes,
but you started 1-3 that season.
True.
But pretty much the program has declined since then.
That was before the 50-0 game, right?
Yeah, because 50-0 was Lane Kiffin.
Yeah,
right.
So
it's
do
you want to combine those two and anger the football guys?
Maybe, yeah,
maybe.
But that's one of those things. If you're going to take a knee, like he's taking a knee, he's giving the game up, and if you want to extend it somehow, then that's on you. That's on Rick Neuheisel to me.
The craziest part of that was that it was a play action pass. Not that they threw a bomb, but like they didn't just drop back and say like, all right, we'll throw it. Then let's fake them out. Play action.
But Rick Neuheisel is he's with the Arizona something or other, so he's like the head coach of that team. So pretty cool.
Damian Williams did catch that pass, if you do remember. So here's a question. Will Devin Williams make a splash next season?
I kind of think so, because you're going to play a lot more wide receivers. You're going to see guys get open. It's just going to be a better scheme overall, and he's good. You saw him when he finally broke through and caught the shotgun was just screaming for him to just throw a little pass, a little dump off to him or something, and let him run with the ball. But they kept throwing
first catch. Just give him a chance first,
they
and then
kept throwing,
gain a little confidence.
They were always throwing him deep balls, or he was double covered and stuff. It was just the weirdest thing. He'll be open when he gets in the game, and he's going to make some big plays. So yes, I think he'll.
We have a live caller on the line.
Oh, nice.
Someone that I think everyone on the show is used to. Jasper Smith is on the line.
Jasper Smith
from YouTube. Hello.
Hey, good evening. How you guys doing?
Good. What's your question for us?
Yeah, my question is just regard to the offensive line. I was wondering if Justin Dedich and Brett Nealon would possibly be able to play on the offensive line as starters. Maybe one of them possibly move into offensive guard.
That's a good question.
Or is Helton, is he gonna continue with his, being loyal to, say our Voorhees?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. There's a story up on USCFootball.com right now. Chris Trevino in the other room did catch up with Justin Dedich talking about that. Not about that specifically, but about, the competition there. He's just got a nasty streak. He's just going to be tough. Like if you want a really tough offensive lineman, he's your guy. So that's one of the more interesting storylines I think you're going to have to watch this spring, and then we'll see how the other guys do. If it's a really close competition, they want to put the 5 best guys out there. I think something like that could happen, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I think there's a possibility. But I think things have to fall the right way for that to happen. They both have to be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think that is a distinct possibility. I don't think they necessarily have to fall the right way. I think they just have to have an injury.
Oh, that's okay.
I think you're always going to have emergency centers. You're going to practice and have guys snap and stuff. Jordan Austin was basically the emergency center last year for USC if need be. But I think you have emergency centers, but I think that you can still move one of those guys if you're confident enough in both of them. And the question is, will both of those guys, if there's an injury, because I don't think they're moving there over Voorhees or Elijah Vera Tucker. I think they're going to be your 2 starting guards. But if there's an injury to one of those guys, do they like Brett Nealon or Justin Dedich? Probably Nealon moving to guard. Do they like him at guard more than they like Jacob Daniel or Frank Martin? And that becomes the question. It's not necessarily one of those is either of those guys better at guard, but I think do they like them better than those other 2 guys? Because neither one of those guys, Jacob Daniel or Frank Martin, has played offense in college. Neither one of them has. I think maybe Jacob Daniels played a couple of snaps, but it's just a question of, do you trust those guys because they're older, or do you think you have more talent in one of those other guys that are younger?
Sounds like Jasper's not a fan of Andrew Voorhees, but I agree. I mean, I think it's going to be tough to to go from backup center or whatever, moving over to guard and take his spot. But, there were some struggles there. We'll see. I think all bets are off because you have a new offensive line coach in there, and he's going to have some different thoughts. He might love Andrew Voorhees. There's no chance. Or, like Shotgun said, if there's an injury. But we just don't know. So I think it's going to be one of those interesting storylines to watch this spring.
Calix Rose had a comment, but I'm making a question. He said, is there any depth as far as the slot receivers go in spring?
I mean, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Velus Jones. Is it?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, you can move Tyler Vaughn, you can move Michael Pittman. Those guys play in the slot some as well. When you go with trips formations, or if you play a slot on one side with just 2 wide receivers. So they use those guys in the slot too. But the thing is, they only have 5 receivers right now.
Yeah, I mean, you might see a Josh Follow play there or something. Like they in that system, like is it really a tight end or it's just a guy playing an inside receiver somewhere? So you might see those guys do that too.
Good point.
I think we'll end it there.
Yeah.
Thank you,
good.
Jasper Smith, for calling in. Thank you guys for watching. We're kind of in the lull between signing day and spring camp, but we got a good show out of it. Thanks to all the live callers and all the questions and comments. Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. We love having you guys comment and talking to you guys. We'll be back. Our new schedule now is going to be on Wednesday, so mark your calendars for that. We had to make the switch just because coming up spring camp, it's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, and there's no really way we can cover practice on Thursday and get here and make a show. So Wednesday is the new day for Tunnel Vision, Wednesday at 6. So make sure you stay tuned for those. It's coming around the corner, spring camp. So make sure you're on USCfootball.com. We'll have our previews and whatnot. And a lot of the questions are about what are you expecting for spring camp as far as depth and whatever. Shotgun and I are doing podcasts about that. So if you want to get into the spring camp mode, check those out. Any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap it up?
That's cool. Thanks for everyone coming on. We're trying to we added some new things, new cameras. We have a 3rd camera this time. We'll try to keep doing that. We're definitely going to get we put in artwork for some of the backdrops and stuff, so we'll have a better looking studio for you. And Chris doing a great job in there with the live calls.
Yeah, big thanks to Chris. He handled those calls well.
Yeah, the live calls. Well, it'd be great if we could, you heard one of the calls, there was someone else ringing in at the same time, and you could kind of hear that. So if we can get some sort of system where we could have people on hold, that'd be great. But as for now, one call at a time will work. But we're
trying here.
We're going to use the off season to try to enhance the show. So by the time next season rolls around, we got a lot more. It's a lot cooler for all you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Again, Wednesdays going forward is when we'll be on.
Yeah. So make sure you get that down. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. That's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next week.